be able to write at that time. And the Mail on Sunday in London wrote an article about me, and my sister read it and was really upset that I would, have the courage to write my story to try to help other abused children. And I haven't talked to her in over 12 years also. So she wants nothing to do with me either, because she just doesn't want to have to face the truth about who our parents really were.
Now, you say that you were abused by your father. Now, was that sexual and physical, mental abuse? What went on?
All of them. Sexual, physical, mental. My life was a living hell from the time I was 8 years old until I was 18 and finally moved out of the house just to get away with it. My father started with the lecturing and used to beat me to force me to read when I wanted to go outside and play with my friends. And if I made a mistake, he would whip out his writing crop and beat the shit out of me, because I didn't get it right. And then in 1968, he started on the sexual abuse. And I know my mother knew what was going on because he had brought me in the master bedroom and locked the door behind me, and I was screaming for help for my mother, and she was pounding on the door and wanted to know what was going on in there. My father just grabbed me by the throat and said, "Don't say a word." And I kept screaming and screaming, and finally she just walked away and just gave up. And from that day forward, I was abused a couple of times a week for years and years. And what ended up happening is that a lot of abused children do what they call either acting in or acting out. And I started to act out and became very disrespectful and disobedient. And my parents thought that I needed discipline, but I didn't need discipline. I just needed my father to stop raping me and my mother to admit what was going on. So they sent me off to military school. Because if I wouldn't listen to people who supposedly loved me, maybe I'd listen to a stranger. So that was another whole hell that I had to go through for a couple of years. And anyway, that's that.
Yeah, I saw something on your brother's Wikipedia page about military school, too, as well. Did you both attend the same military school?
Well, the first year I attended Ridgewood Military Academy in Woodland Hills, California. And then after finishing that year, I went to public high school and was so emotionally scarred. I couldn't function as a normal teenager. I basically flunked out of my first year in high school. So my parents decided to send me back to military school, and this time they decided to send us both because they thought it would be a good experience for Kevin. But a miracle happened, and the school ran out of funds after only a couple of months being there, and we both went back to public high school. So my brother only attended military school for a couple of months. What was funny about the military school is that the place was in absolute shambles. My classroom didn't even have a roof on it. But since I had already had the experience on a year of military school, I pretty much knew how to play the game. Within the first week, I had already been promoted to sergeant. I figured, gosh, if the school would have stayed open, I might have been colonel by the end of the year. And, because I learned how to play the game,
right.
And I knew how I had to behave in order to survive. And my brother was pretty much invisible there, and I was just glad that school closed because I didn't care for that type of environment. I had to be, driven from Thousand Oaks all the way to Northridge, California every day, and I didn't have any friends and felt very alienated and alone. but I'm just glad that it didn't last very long. And then, we both came back and basically, went to public high school.
What is the age difference between you and Kevin?
Kevin is 3.5 years younger than me.
Wow, you'd think you guys would stay close,
Well, yeah, you'd think so, but I think deep down, my brother probably feels that he owes me at least a thank you for saving him from what I call our father in the book, the creature, and giving him the emotional tools to go out in the world and make something of himself. And I tried for over 30 years to keep in touch with him, and I thought as long as my mother was alive, there might be a chance to where she could try to bring us together. But as soon as she died, there were no more ties. For me to at least be able to talk to my brother. I have no way of getting a hold of him. I have no phone numbers. There's no way that I can ever try to reach out to him, even though I've tried.
Okay, now, do you think your brother and your sister, were they ever molested by your father or abused by your father?
My brother was definitely not molested. I think by the time my mother realized what was going on, she decided to put her protective wings around my brother and never let go. They had a very close relationship for the remainder of her life. And as far as my sister, I don't really, I think something went on, but I don't really have any proof. The only proof I have is that when my sister was 18 years old, she moved to Europe to search out a husband. Evidently, something must have happened in her life to where she couldn't even date an American man. So that's a question that she would have to answer.
Now, when the abuse was going on, when you were a teenager and you were a kid, did you ever talk to your brother and sister about it?
No, I was so frightened of the creature that I didn't have the strength to yell any louder, because every time I yelled, my screams went unanswered, and it skewed my entire personality, and started making me not trust people, especially my mother, and not knowing who I could talk to because I couldn't trust them. So I lived my entire childhood in total paranoia.
Now, there's another, I read in one of the articles that your father was some kind of a neo-Nazi or a white supremacist?
Yeah, and a racist. Oh, yeah, he used to, I feel sorry for my mother since she had to live with him. He used to cut his hair like Adolf Hitler and wear a Hitler mustache in the 1960s, 69, 70. And I'm like, what kind of a lunatic does that? I mean, he was very much damaged goods. Evidently, when he was in World War II, he was stationed over in Germany and felt sympathetic toward the German people's culture and plight, and became brainwashed and obsessed with Adolf Hitler and racism and blaming everybody for his problems as opposed to taking responsibility for your own actions. And he was mentally ill. And when he came back from the war, he was not diagnosed by an army doctor that he had PTSD or any mental illness, and he just went off in the world and became very bitter about everything. And he tried to brainwash me and tried to, make me believe all of this neo-Nazi, white supremacist crap. And I absolutely refused it, because I don't think someone's religion or skin color has anything to do with anything. And We live in a society now where it's even worse than it's ever been, and I just don't understand it. I don't believe it. I fought it all the time. He used to lecture me for hours and hours every single day. And I'm not just talking a couple of hours. I'm talking 8, 9, 10 hours. I'd have to sit there. And if I tried to leave, he'd pick up his famous riding crop and whip the crap out of me. So I anytime I didn't have to be home, I wouldn't be home. I would spend most of my days just waiting for at least my mother to come home, because he wouldn't be able to rape me, at least while she was there. So I just spent most of my time outside the house, just trying not to be around that environment.
Now, was he trying to indoctrinate your brother and sister, too, into this Nazi belief?
No. And that's the funny thing about it, is that my brother never had a single lecture. He never had a single spanking. I mean, he was spoiled rotten, and at a very young age, I was very envious of him and very jealous, going, he couldn't do any wrong, and because he was so protected and sheltered by my mother, my father never really, after the abuse had started with me, and because I intervened, my brother was basically not available. My mother was just always around him and gave him everything that he wanted, But my mother basically just decided, well, if I can't save Randy, at least I can save Kevin, So it was a tragic decision that my mother made to abandon one of her children, and decide just to protect, Kevin and make sure that Kevin was okay.
Now you're saying, though, that you also protected your brother. How did you go about protecting your brother from this?
I would intervene. When my father would want to talk to my brother, I would come and immediately stand in between them and say, Kevin, go ahead and go outside and play. And my brother never really understood it, but being a young kid, he just went outside and played, and then my father proceeded to abuse me. I can't even tell you how many times I managed to maneuver myself between my brother and my father just to protect my brother, because even at a very young age, I knew I was screwed up. And there was no way I was going to let this creature mess Kevin up too. So I consciously made sure that he was never alone with my father, and that I was always going to be there for him.
Now, you describe your father having a riding crop. And did he have a horse? Did you have a horse?
No.
So he just
had a riding crop, because that was his weapon of choice to beat me. People have been spanked before, where the father says bend over and you grab your ankles and they spank the crap out of you. Well, I learned from military school that they also had severe, what they call corporal punishment, and they used to have the commandant had a big wooden paddle with holes in it. Used to beat the crap out of me all the time because of my attitude and what I said. And I started wearing 2 and 3 and 4 pair of underwear under my uniform so that they could go ahead and beat the hell out of me, and I didn't feel anything. And I started doing the same thing with my father, and then he must have got wise to it. So instead of hitting me on the butt, he started hitting me on the back of the legs, which were not protected, So it was awful.
Okay, yeah. I went to Catholic school. I had one of those paddles as well with the holes drilled in it. Okay, this might be a good.
It doesn't bother me anymore, because that person that I was is dead and gone, and all that's left are the memories of what I endured, and that's why I was able to write this book so quickly, because it didn't bother me to talk about it anymore, because that person's gone. what has